to call the meeting to order. Call the meeting to order of the Morton County Planning and Zoning meeting, July 22nd. First order of business will be the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, our vice chair is not able to be here today, so I'm Jackie Buckley. I'll be chairing the meeting. First of all, we have, I'd like to introduce our 3 new board members. I mean, it's not on the agenda, but I think we need to introduce them. First is Luke Capella, and he joined us about 2 weeks ago when the Morton County appointed him. He's a Morton County appointee. Next to me is Heidi Balavic. She's a Mandan City Commissioner, and she was appointed by the Mandan City Council. And then Joe Camisa was appointed by the Morton County Commission as well. So other roll call, Commissioner Zachmeyer?
Yes.
Commissioner Berger?
Here.
Commissioner Braun?
Here.
Commissioner L?
Here.
And I'm Jackie Buckley. Well, everybody is here but Commissioner Tomac. Okay, approval of the agenda. Can I get a motion to approve?
Move to approve. Second.
Okay, motion's been made and approved to approve the agenda. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Approval of minutes from the June 24th, 2026 meeting.
I move to approve the minutes. Second.
Okay, moved by Commissioner L, seconded by Commissioner Braun to approve the minutes from the June 24th meeting. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. So do we want to
And Chair Buckley, I have just the note to make.
Okay.
So because there's been publication in news stories, I am going to make a clarifying point here. So you're in the Morton County Courthouse. This is the Planning and Zoning Commission for Morton County. In North Dakota, in all states, zoning authority is granted to cities, and zoning authority is also granted to counties, also townships. We won't talk about those today, but in the county has zoning authority only to the extent that the city zoning authority ends. So I have a map here. Hopefully all of you can tell where this is. This is, Rough Rider Estates. We've got I-94. We've got, the refinery over there to kind of ground you. So that black line, so this black line is the corporate boundary for the city of Mandan. Cities in North Dakota, especially of a size that Mandan or Bismarck or Fargo are, they are given the authority to zone outside their city limits. That's called the extraterritorial jurisdiction or the extraterritorial area. So in this case with the city of Mandan, this space between the black line and the 1 mile blue line, it is in the county. It's not in the city's corporate boundary, but it is the area that the city has zoning jurisdiction in. The county does not have any zoning authority in that area. The county also has no zoning authority within the city's corporate boundary. So if you are here tonight and you are concerned about any lands within that blue line, any lands within the black line, you are in the wrong meeting, because the county has no zoning authority in those locations. regardless of anything that has been said publicly, published. That's the fact of the matter. We're so glad that everyone's here. I'm always glad when people are paying attention to planning and zoning. Of course, we always love it when you participate in plans, ahead of time. That's always, I hope you will be equally engaged when we do our future land use update in 2027 and 28. So keep your eyes peeled. In fact, you'll probably get notices. You'll get postcards. Pay attention to those and also come to meetings. So if any of you are here for the lands within these lines, you're welcome to stay, but we're not talking about any of those lands. The data center ordinance that we are working on for the county extends to all lands outside that blue line. Same thing with New Salem, Hebron, Flasher, Glen Ullin. Those cities have their own zoning jurisdiction. We don't have zoning authority in those cities. Okay? So just to be clear on that one. Okay, back to our agenda.
Okay, so is there any questions? Yes.
So this was advertised as a meeting for the purpose of discussing this type of thing. Are there any representatives from the city here?
They have, so by law in North Dakota, planning and zoning commissions for the county are, depending on the size, it's either a 5-member board or a 9-member board based on population. We have a size population that we have a 9-member board, and there must be 2 representatives from the county seat, meaning City of Mandan, on this commission, and there are. So Heidi Balavic and Mike Braun, those are representatives from the city on this board. They're here for every month, representing the city.
So yes, young man?
Do we have a date, a time scheduled for the city zoning ordinance meeting?
So I would encourage you, I don't want to speak in case their schedule has changed. The city has been working on, so every jurisdiction that exercises zoning authority, they need 2 core documents. One is the zoning code or land use code, depending on what they call it, regulations for land uses within that jurisdiction. They also need a long-range plan. So the city, in North Dakota, our budgets are small. We try to keep austerity budgets. It's hard to find money, for planning documents, but they pulled together the money to revamp their zoning code. It was very much in need of updating. That process started very roughly, maybe 2-ish, year and a half, 2-ish years ago. They had some staff turnover, so it kind of paused for a moment. They're now kind of at the tail end of adopting that full code update, so it's kind of a bigger, expansive project. When you adopt your new zoning code, you want to have it be as complete as possible. So kind of in more recent months, I think they've been adding data center specific use standards for themselves. Those don't have to match the counties at all. I know that they certainly have reviewed our drafts and, kind of try to make them mesh nicely, but they're not exactly the same. So those data center standards, I believe, will be part of that package of a whole land use code update. I would check their website. If you just Google City of Mandan Planning and Zoning meetings, you can find the schedule. And those, the draft of the land use code update is on the website on a different page. If you just Google City of Mandan land use code update or zoning code update, it'll probably take you to that page where they have the long draft that you can look at. So I would encourage you to do that, but I don't want to speak about when, their meetings are and when it's coming, because they may change that.
Natalie, I'll touch base on that a bit.
Thank you.
They just put out a press release today indicating that while they were going to discuss it on Monday, they felt they needed further revisions to the data center portion. So they are going to plan a public hearing on August 24th for the data center portion of their planning and zoning ordinances.
For the city.
For the city, not the county, yes.
And the ETA.
Yep.
So I have a question. So On that August 24th meeting, is that when they're going to present the ordinance like we are tonight?
It says here that the updated data section will be available online on August 6th. So you'll have a chance to review it before that public hearing.
So the other thing is, I just wanted to follow up. So whatever, like Heidi, you're on the city commission, so whatever you hear here in this meeting, you'll have a sense of what the concerns are and can communicate that to the powers that are, drafting.
I mean, yeah, we all are going to be open to those conversations. I'm also a citizen. I also live in the city, so I also have concerns too. I think it's important for everybody to be well informed and not get information from their neighbors because their neighbors are getting information from their neighbors. I think everyone needs to be responsible for doing a little research on their own. And absolutely, we want to hear what you as citizens want to say because a lot of good information does come from you. We want to do it in a mature, nice manner. We don't want to throw people under the bus or call names or be mean because we're all in the same boat. We are all citizens. We are all taxpayers. It affects every one of us, but we're trying to make best decisions for everybody.
Yes, Mr. Sir?
Oh, yes. The meeting that was scheduled for the 27th, is that going to discuss any of your concerns as far as the AI center?
I think the data center portion is out of the meeting, but I'm not certain because I am not on that committee. This was just a press release that was put out today. So I think they are pulling all data center information out of that meeting.
Is that true, too, Mike? Is that your knowledge as well?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you.
Somebody please repeat the conversations or
Okay.
the questions.
Okay, they're asking questions about the city planning and zoning board meeting. So there's nothing on data centers next week on the 27th. The city has taken that off the agenda for data centers for their meeting for planning and zoning next week on the 27th. And it won't be till August 24th. Everybody got that?
Yes, sir.
So tonight, we're talking about the county zoning ordinance, not the city. Everybody kind of understand where we're at.
I want to ask a clarifying question. So a map was shared with the area that there's maybe planned for a data center, and I'm looking at this map, and I'm trying to compare them, and I'm struggling because I have small versions. Does the entirety of what they have proposed fall within
Yes.
the city? Okay.
Yes.
That's what I wanted to know.
Yeah, there's been a lot longer conversation and there were discussions about data centers further in rural Morton County, but the discussion of the last week or so is all within City of Mandan's zoning authority. Yeah.
Yep. Because the county currently has a moratorium on data centers, so nobody can submit an application. We have no application, we know of no application.
Correct.
And so there is none. Okay?
We're just preparing ourselves to have a good and complete and sensible set of regulations so that if and when we do receive an application, we have regulations in place to guide the shape of that development. That's why we adopted a moratorium. It's been in place for almost 2 years.
Yep. Okay,
Couple questions. On the recent outbreak in Wyoming, there was traced to a data center, account of the impurities they're putting in the water from washing them down. Have anybody known anything about that? That's a fact.
yeah, but we're not gonna discuss that now, okay? Well, because when it comes up to our agenda, that's when we'll discuss that, okay? We're just kinda, okay, I'm just answering questions about the city and their
Versus
meeting. And so,
Yeah.
in case somebody would like to not attend the county meeting, you're welcome to stay, like Natalie said, but if you would like to leave, feel free to do so, okay? So we'll get into the data center discussion when we reach the agenda.
Thank you.
That point on our agenda, sir, okay?
And we would very much ask, again, if your comments, yes, it's all a community discussion, but if your comments are about Mandan and about their jurisdiction, please, please save those discussions for the city meeting, because these are long enough, and you should definitely convey to the city your sentiments yourself. Please.
Are you able to talk about the data centers at the city meeting? Because
Yes,
that's
when that item,
impact what they do.
when that comes up on their agenda, that is the place to make comments
The
about,
water they use,
yeah.
and they don't have to.
We're gonna talk about that when we get to the data center
Yeah.
portion.
Okay.
I'm just gonna throw a comment out. If people are wondering about information, they should really separate the back, especially. Thank you.
Yes, because there was quite a discussion last night. I don't know if all of you were on Facebook, but there was a local station that had the wrong information. With my former job, I had connections with the local media. I made a contact. It was announced on the local station's station on the 10 o'clock news to try and straighten it out. So look at the city or the county website for pertinent information on meeting dates, if you would. The media doesn't always have it right. I don't always have it right, but we want to make sure that you know where to go for your comments about any information about any of our planning and zoning, city or county. They'll be listed on the county or the city website. We also have a county and a city Facebook page, and so if you're Facebookers, it's also on there.
That's where to get the straight story, is
Yes.
directly from the government entity's Facebook page or website.
Yes, sir, the guy in the white shirt. Did you have a question?
Yes, does the county, the city of Mandan applies a code that impacts the county? Like if the county has a decibel rating at the blue line, and the city of Mandan has a different decibel rating, does the county have any legal obligation to hold the city of Mandan accountable if that noise reaches the exterior?
So the question,
Yeah, I'll repeat the question.
I'll repeat the question. So the question is, what happens when the impacts of a development that lie within the city's jurisdiction, those impacts actually travel past the city's zoning jurisdiction? And the answer is nothing. I mean, that's just the way it is. I guess what I would say is, when those development applications are being processed with the city, we all, cities, counties, we do have to publish notices when we have development applications come in. And I know there's not a whole lot of people who still, are frequent subscribers and lookers at the newspaper. Our publication is the Mandan News. Look at those legals, or just keep looking at planning and zoning agendas so that you know what is on them. And anyone can come speak, if they have a property that's close, even if you live in the city, you can come speak at a Mandan zoning meeting and talk about what you think impacts might be, even though you're across that jurisdictional line. So I guess what I would say is, get involved in public comments for projects that may impact you, even though the county doesn't have any ability to put standards on something in the city's zoning jurisdiction.
That noise pollution is going to go out of our city, you guys say.
Ordinance has a laxer than the county ordinance, and it's reaching beyond.
Get no answers here.
So,
For the county,
so usually it would be like a citizen, a civil suit, that if you're experiencing damages from this thing, that you would probably, no, I'm saying it wouldn't necessarily be the county. It would be whoever's experiencing damages from that impact, the impact to their property.
So like you're saying, the county doesn't enforce any kinds of.
The county doesn't have enforcement abilities in the city where the city has zoning authority. We do not have enforcement capability there. No, and, this continues to be a perpetual challenge for different types of things, different nuisances, like junk accumulation, stuff like that. It can be tricky. It's not a perfect system. We want to make sure, or the state and zoning practice, it's good to have planning ability outside your city limits so that you can plan for really expensive infrastructure and where it goes, roads, sewer, that kind of thing. There has to be some kind of planning capability to do that. And the trade-off is that you get, crossed jurisdictional boundaries when there's impacts, and it's not a perfect system.
Heidi?
Have the mic passed from
Okay.
person or the question repeated?
Okay.
Because there are a lot of people in here.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay,
Okay, I'm
so
going to
do you-
repeat, I'm
okay,
gonna repeat
so-
that question.
Okay.
So the question was, does the county have any recourse or ability to enforce violations in the city ETA? And the answer is no. The county does not have the ability to enforce its regulations in the city ETA.
Related question. If,
And vice versa.
if the city allows a very loud operation to go high decibel levels, they're testing jet engines, and the county says, no, you can't have sound above 2 lawnmowers running at the same time, much lower than this. The city has no problem with the jet engine operators, but that noise strays over the line into the county. Does it then violate the county ordinance?
This is getting into a whole line of legal questions that are gonna,
Copies here, you should get up and say something.
well, when I guess what I would say is when there are
State's attorney
damages or
should be
issues, yeah. I mean,
Addressing it and saying exactly what the county can or cannot do.
Yes.
Our state's attorney's in the back if he wishes to comment.
No comment.
So the question was, what is the legal recourse of the county if the city allows very, very loud projects and those impacts bleed over into county jurisdiction? Anything and everything. I mean, we're a litigious society. People sue each other. All kinds of things can happen. It's going to play out how it plays out.
Okay. Do you want to say something, Mr. Commissioner Zachmeyer?
No, I do believe that the state's attorney should comment on this. It's the only way to get to the point. The state's attorney needs to stand up and say that the county has no jurisdiction over city ordinances. And if it isn't coming from the state's attorney, we're just going to be talking about it all night. And I know Mr. Copy doesn't want to say something, but I think it's time to say it. The state's attorney needs to speak to this, otherwise it's going to get unfriendly.
Yeah, so there's cross-fertilization.
The state's attorney is elected by the people. He is the county representative. Anything that happens has to go through the state's attorney's office.
There's the ordinance.
So I'm going to move on, Commissioner Zachmeyer.
Lack of an answer is actually an answer.
Okay, so I'm going to close this discussion. I think we've answered most of your questions, or you know when the next meeting is for the city. We're going to go on with our county planning and zoning meeting, starting now at 5:57. So the first item on our agenda is the reorganization of the board. Our chair has resigned. Jesse Kiss resigned, so our vice chair is not here tonight. That is Maria Tomac. And so I will take nominations from the board for election of a chairperson.
Commissioner Buckley, I'd nominate Dwayne L.
Dwayne L. has been nominated. Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? I would take a motion for a unanimous ballot.
Commissioner Buckley, I would move the nomination cease and the unanimous ballot be cast for Dwayne L. to be the new chairman of the Morton County Planning and Zoning Board.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. So I guess I don't think we need a vice chair because Maria is the vice chair, so we should be good.
Yes.
Okay, I will turn the meeting over, should I turn them, I will turn the meeting over to you, Dwayne.
Okay.
Oh, I have
Just in case there was confusion.
So this one,
I thought I'd be back to work by 6:30.
Oh, no, you're not.
Maybe 7.
I should have bought some 12 nicotine pouches, what I should have did. But it's after 6. Thank you.
Andy, I did talk to Chase about something else, and he said he was hoping to be here to help.
He told me he couldn't be here
Okay.
yesterday.
He must have changed that, that's right.
No, he couldn't be here tonight. I can't hear you.
I know. It's all good, Jack. It's all good.
This is...
County State's Attorney, I think.
Since we've been in high school.
8 or 9 terms. When he was younger, he was really effective, and then pretty soon he got old, and now he's retired and doing things like this is where the state's attorney's got to get up and say something.
All right, we'll continue the meeting here. Natalie has an announcement.
Okay. And since there are so many people in this room, out of respect for time and for everyone, if you're going to speak at all, please go out in the hall, or this will be a long night. So, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So, we will not be making any decisions this evening due to an error with the Mandan News, not posting the second notice. We will conduct the public hearings, but the board will not be making any decisions on any of the further items on the agenda to include the Lydia subdivision or any final decisions on the data center ordinances. We're willing to listen to comment, to anyone who has comment, but no decisions will be made this month, so.
Thank you. And for all the members of the board, I have to really drive home. I know we do not have enough microphones. Everyone really needs to lean into, move it if you need to, speak straight into the microphone for our online meeting. Thank you.
Oh, and then,
And just a note for those that are attending online, please make sure your mics are muted. If you would like to make a comment, raise your hand and we'll recognize you at that time. But while we're online and in here, please keep your mics muted. Raise your hand if you'd like to make a comment.
Okay.
All right.
So with that, I guess I'm going to suggest we bypass Lydia subdivision. That's going to be a very straightforward application, and due to the error with notice, we'll need to discuss that in August. So,
Is there anyone here to speak on Lydia for the public hearing portion? Okay. Then we will continue to the Land Use Code Amendment, Section 5-310.
So I want to just summarize for everyone. At the last meeting of this board, the Planning and Zoning Commission, there was a suggestion to make a subcommittee to review our draft ordinance and discuss in further detail some of the items that were still outstanding that we needed to address. So that subcommittee was formed. They met virtually on June 9th, June 23rd, and July 7th. That July 7th meeting, we had intended for industry representatives to be able to read the draft and comment on it. I had sent an email invitation to TechND, Applied Digital, and we received no response from either of those parties. I mean, certainly it could be that they didn't receive the email, but they had responded before. So no comments from industry on the draft at that meeting. I would say the major changes, I'm going to go through the draft. So one of the big items that we wanted to discuss and address was adequacy of power provision. So we, staff, had conversations with higher ups at Basin Electric, higher ups at MDU, and got their explanation of how they are handling large load requests, large load customers. Basin, in fact, their government affairs team had put together some language because Basin, in fact, has their own process for large load customers. They do have a vetting process. They are not just allowing people to request and assuming that that request is going to get filled. They have I don't want to speak too much about it, but because I'm not an expert on it, but basically they're vetting those requests. They're making sure that those users, those large load users, are bearing the cost of that additional increment, for what it costs to build new capacity. It seemed to me from talking to them that they had quite a robust process in place. So we borrowed language that they had given to us, and I will say it was technical, from an energy provider standpoint. I don't have that technical knowledge. I don't process requests for power every day. So we appreciated them sharing their, legal team's suggestion about how that gets worded. So we took that text and we incorporated it into our draft. So we have kind of two directions that a data center applicant can take when they make their application. In all likelihood, these large load users are going to have to create new power generation to serve the data center. And most often it's probably going to be the large load customer is more or less paying for that power generation facility, but the utility will end up owning it. So we have two versions. So the applicant, when they make their application to Morton County to get zoning approval for a data center, they have to declare what route of permitting they're taking. So they can either say, we are going to create our own energy generation facility to serve this data center. And if they are, they either have to wrap that into the application as part of the project. So that means when they do their noise impact analysis, it has to include that energy generation facility. If they haven't got that far along in planning, we give them an option B and say, okay, you're provisionally approved for this data center, but you cannot begin construction on, no site modifications of any kind until you can permit the energy generation facility that goes alongside it. Because sometimes that energy generation facility might be in a completely different place. And so we're going to require them to then permit that other facility, and there's no guarantees that that energy generation facility will be approved, so it behooves them to permit them together. They don't have to, but then they have more assurance if they do permit them together. Or if they declare that they're going to pull, if their strategy is to pull power off the grid, then we say, again, you cannot begin construction until we have in hand a power provision agreement with the utility, that they have done their transmission assessment to ensure that what they're going to pull off the grid is sustainable for this project. So, because, a project of that magnitude, a lot of times they're not going to necessarily have their financing in place until they get their zoning approvals. But we say, fine, here you got your approval, but you cannot actually do any construction until you get your power provision agreements completely in place. So we felt like that's good flexibility to protect the public and also be flexible for the developer. So that's kind of the two, it's like four. It's like two and then forked off again. So that was the main change since last time. We also, there's always little changes here and there in wording and grammar and things like that. We also put a provision in there about infrasound. So data center facility must not produce infrasound at a level of greater than 90 dBz as measured at the boundary of the property upon which the facility is permitted, except during emergency operations. So I know there's a big, it is an impact, emergency power, if anyone, is familiar. The data center, they cannot have downtime. That's their whole business model, is they're going to have 1 hour a year maximum that they're ever down, and because their model is reliability. So they have lots of diesel generators, huge fuel tanks to power those diesel generators. And so we say, yes, we understand that you have to test these generators once a week. You got to go down the line and test them. But in our ordinance, we say you can only test one at a time, and you can only test during certain hours so that it's not such a huge volume of noise. And, if we didn't allow for that, it would just be an instant no-go. So that's the compromise there, is that we're not punishing them for testing and having backup power. And I will say that was a discussion. There was a working group that had worked on a state model ordinance for data centers. I was part of that working group. I understood, after having the discussion, that was a big point. It was the emergency backup power. And again, that the whole group kind of convened on the idea that there has to be some flexibility there. So, so the infrasound, adding in the standard for infrasound was in there, and I think that was the big two from the last draft. So then I leave it up to the board to make any comments about, if you went through this, what you might want to change or direction for staff.
And you're saying infrasound.
This is,
Yep.
hang on, we'll get there.
Open the public hearing.
Yep.
Yep.
Commissioners?
And again, speak into your mics.
Yep. Commissioners, any questions for Natalie?
Natalie, could you please talk about tonal noise a little bit? Because I know that's been a concern for a lot of people, that humming.
Yep.
And I don't think that's in this ordinance.
For sure, yep. So, the model zoning task force, which I was on, they Applied Digital did pay their, or I don't know if they paid them, but they had their acoustic engineer come speak to that group. The acoustic engineer, he's based out of Minneapolis, and was talking about tonal noise. So essentially, there's volume, there's like sound pressure, which is what we hear. It can be lower, smaller waves, or it can be bigger waves that are pushing on your, eardrum. And, if you were to listen to white noise, some people even listen to white noise to go to sleep. That's like a good balance of all the octaves in the spectrum of human hearing. And so we can accommodate loudness if it's balanced a lot better. What human hearing finds very annoying is when you have a fractional octave that's sticking out from those bands. So like it would be a buzz, a hum, a squeak, whirring sound, something that's sticking out that's very annoying. And so even when that's quiet, it can be, troublesome for us to have to accommodate. So that would be tonal noise, is that noise that's sticking out among all the other octave bands. So there are ways to measure that. Easy ways. I mean, you have to have acoustical engineers bring out their equipment and measure it. It is very difficult, as with so in our ordinance, the way we have it laid out is we have the applicant perform a sound study to establish a baseline ambient noise level at the site where they plan to make this data center. So they're essentially putting out acoustic noise measuring equipment, and they say, all right, here's the typical average sound level in this place. And then we have standards for what very small fraction of noise they can be above that ambient noise once the data center is put in. And so what they have to do is they take all the equipment that they're going to put in this data center, they model how much noise this data center with all this equipment is going to make, which is, again, expensive software. You hire people to do this, and they make a model of how far this noise is going to stretch. So again, you can model it, but it's only a model. It's only as good as the information you put in there. And in order to make that model, you're relying on the specifications that the manufacturer of the equipment gives you. Some are better, some are worse. They need to have tested the kind of sound that their equipment generates. If they've done a good job at that, the model will be more accurate. If they've done a not so good job, it won't be so accurate. So we're doing our best to keep the developer honest, try and pull as good of information as we can into that model. So there's an expectation there. And then there's the expectation about what the noise needs to be at after the facility is actually built. And so once it's built, you could go out there with your noise measuring equipment very easily, if you have that equipment and know how, and measure what is the decibel level of this facility and is there any tonal noise in it. So that's easy to do, but then if you're a data center and you've invested $1 billion or whatever they invest in this facility, and then you find out that your facility is actually making tonal noise, you're going to have to mitigate it. We, in our ordinance, trying to balance, neighbor concerns and ability to develop and exercise entrepreneurship in the world, strike a balance between developer interest, neighbor's interest. So in order to not create an environment of such uncertainty about what's happening after it gets built, we do not have tonal noise in the ordinance right now. I do have a draft that I put together that does incorporate tonal noise, and we can talk about that, but the draft that was published, the draft that is before the board, does not have a tonal noise component in it. It just has an overall decibel level, overall sound pressure that you're getting in it for a standard. So,
And with that, Natalie, talking county and realizing residences are much further spread, Do you know, with your research that you've done, how far that tonal noise carries?
And it just depends.
On
It
how loud it
totally
is.
depends on the equipment, totally depends on, and even when you build, and this is the tricky thing too, even when you build a facility, noise carries better in different temperatures, when the wind is blowing a certain direction. This does create a lot of uncertainty for somebody who develops, because maybe on one day they're totally fine, and on the next day they're not fine because of the weather or the wind or what have you. So I guess we're focusing on upfront expectations as opposed to back-end expectations.
And how far away from residential areas do these data centers have to be?
Sure. So we do have in our ordinance, I kind of described, they lay out their baseline ambient, and then they can be some certain measure above, and we have different noise thresholds for the boundary of a park, the boundary of a lot on which you have an occupied residence, and a different standard for a lot of a non-participating owner that doesn't have a residence, because they're kind of different levels of sensitivity. But we do, so that is modeled, but then we also have a minimum. So we do have kind of a fallback minimum, that a data center cannot be closer than 3/4 of a mile from an occupied residence or other sensitive receptors. I think public buildings, we put it in there.
Okay, I'm being a mic hog here, I'm sorry.
Don't be sorry.
I'm really new to this, so I've read it, but I haven't gotten to be on the previous meetings, so I do have questions. But I hear a lot of people say water pollution and these data centers needing to have a fresh source of water, but I see in here that you define a closed loop system that would eliminate water sources getting polluted.
So I'll explain this. We're not in version 1.0 of data centers. Like any technology, we get better, or probably more efficient in how these things run, as with any technology over time. Older examples you're probably going to see, and certainly there are ones that use great amounts of water. Our regulation that we have in this draft is that they must use a closed loop system, and that it must be above ground. It can't be below ground or integrated into a natural water system. It has to be fully enclosed. And yes, there's going to be a lot of liquid that goes in there in the beginning to prime the system. And just like you would change antifreeze in your car, I mean, I'm speculating here, but you would probably have to change out that fluid somewhat periodically. But they essentially use antifreeze, just like a car radiator. I did speak with Department of Environmental Quality. The state agencies are the ones, or DEQ is the agency that does all the environmental work on data centers. And, honestly, there are aspects of data centers that sort of exist outside of the current regulatory framework, because EPA legislation didn't take into account emergency backup power. It just kind of took into account standard operating emissions. So there are some things that have to get adjusted, and as regulation needs to catch up with this. But generally, environmental permitting goes to DEQ. I had called them. I asked them about existing facilities. So Applied Digital has a facility in Jamestown, and again, I'm reiterating what staff at DEQ told me. They looked at that permit and they said yes, that they had Applied Digital had pulled a stormwater permit, or outflow permit for wastewater, and the requirement for that permit is the operator has to send in samples of that outflow water, and that there haven't been any. They got the permit just in case they needed it, but they haven't needed it because they have no outflow, and that is a closed loop system. So that would be what is required in Morton County, is a closed loop system.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the commission?
Commissioner, Chair L, Natalie, a couple of questions on process and standards for construction. So looking at the notification standard, we have a 3-mile defined radius for properties within that project zone to be notified. How is that 3 miles determined? And those situations where those that should be notified are up against the ETA on the just on the outskirts of the ETA.
Yep. So I would say, so basically, we take, so the applicant defines the area in which their project is going to take place. We make sure that they have land control in that boundary. We ask for land control agreements and documents to validate that, this boundary is not covering anything that they haven't gotten leases on or ownership of. So they define their project boundary that they're getting permitted for, and then we draw that into our geographic information system, our software, and then the software will draw a 3-mile circle around that property or project boundary, and whatever address falls within that 3 miles, it auto-generates a list for me of addresses, and I send letters. What I would do is, if that crosses jurisdictional lines, it would still go as a notice. So if say something's located very close to the Mandan ETA, I'm still sending notices to Mandan residents because they're within that 3 miles. They'll still get notified. Anyone online, can you please mute your microphone? There are a lot of people online. Everyone, please mute.
When discussing overhead wires, and there's a clause for when necessary, how are we determining when that's necessary? When does that trigger?
Yeah, that's a good question. To be honest, I borrowed that from existing, like for our wind ordinance. That was in the wind ordinance, and I recycled it. I think we would probably leave that up to the county engineer to assess and figure out if and when that might be necessary.
And then, as we're reviewing applications, is there a process for the emergency manager, in addition to rural fire, to have input into hard surface requirements, especially during wet weather, thawing? If there's a situation where Mandan Rural Fire Department has to respond to the project site while construction is going on, are we going to have requirements for rocks to be placed down, which is generally what's necessary to prevent trucks and other vehicles from being stuck in the mud? So just wanted to see if there was a process for getting the input from the fire department and the emergency manager.
So that's a really good point. So I do send, whenever we get applications, I send out notices to all our relevant departments and stakeholders to give input. And in here, in our draft ordinance, we do separate and say, you can permit, that we're evaluating, is this proposed data center in an appropriate location? And then we separate and say that by a certain time, you need to submit a full emergency response or emergency operations plan to be reviewed by our emergency manager, and it has to meet his approval. So I guess we're relying on our emergency manager to gather input into that plan that he deems fit or necessary, and to go through it in that manner. But I think it would be good just for us and our internal process to probably loop in emergency management when the highway department is pulling together road use agreements. What happens if it gets really muddy or but I would say that's probably similar to most big projects and road use agreements and needing emergency access.
Thank you. And then the last question I have, item 1 under use standards, we talk about permanent structure and how that is to look. We have a limit on 2 stories for the data center. Are there data centers with basements? Are there restrictions against basements? How are anything underground handled?
That's a good question. Not that I have a vast knowledge of data centers, but I guess I haven't heard of ones that have basements. Maybe they might in really hot climates, but I think that's kind of why they're coming up here, is they get free air conditioning 9 to 10 months out of the year. So ones that I've seen, and when we say stories, that's how they define a story. It's probably gonna be a lot higher than, obviously a residential structure, but just so that they're not stacking and getting really too tall in a rural setting. And I think, if they're in a place where there's geotechnical issues or floodplain, they won't be able to do a basement anyway.
And Commissioner Camisa, we toured the one in Ellendale, and they built one building that's 2 stories, and they said they won't do it
Right.
anymore.
They wanna do one.
1 story, 1 level, 900,000 square feet.
Couple Walmarts.
Their basement, I would assume.
No basement.
I would figure there wouldn't be,
Yeah.
but just wasn't sure if we are going to have some, out of the area companies coming in that are going to question basements, or if there needs to be something to address that.
Yeah, I don't think we probably would have to be concerned about that. I don't know what impact, I guess, that would have in terms of externalities or impacts off-site, except for a shallow water table. But I think that would already preclude them doing that because it's going to wash out their foundation or something. I think the logistics are going to correct themselves.
So, that's all I had. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, to build off the 2 stories, we as a county approved industrial height to 100 feet. That was the former height of the Heskett Power Plant powerhouse. And then we just approved the building, that power facility, they were going to 100 feet. And there might be a reason that they don't, is there a reason that they only want the 2 stories? Because the reason I'm asking is, they can go, if there was a project being actually proposed, are they going to then say, well, you can go to 100 feet in other parts of your industrial zoning, so we want a variance on the 2 stories? But is that a standard for data centers? They don't want to go over 2 stories because of heat?
They don't want to go over 1.
They don't want to go over 1?
Correct.
Did
That's
they give a reason?
Because of the cost.
Yeah.
And the cooling of it is in the summertime to make sure that they could get those kept the computers cool.
Right, like as heat rises, I think they kind of figure out there's no point in having it be 2 stories. But I guess, so the county adopted that we do not have a height limit in the industrial zone, but this can sometimes be permitted in the ag zone under special use, in both places under special use permit, but I think it still does make sense because these are so big, just to say 2, go ahead and do 2. I mean, I think it may be irrelevant to have it in there at all, because they're probably not just naturally going to go over 2 anyway. But, yeah, I mean, I think we could leave it in or take it out. I don't think it matters too much.
Then one other question I had was on the first page, 1 of 15, I think it would be BB. It should be noted that the approval of a data center facility under option 1B does not automatically guarantee an approval of a power generation facility permitted separately under the standards of section 5-085 energy conversion facility. When I first read that, I read that to be, there would end up being 2 hearings, one on the data center, one on their power generation.
That's correct.
And is there any way then to make it all into one project?
They have that option. They can make it into one project if they want, but that means that they need the specs for that power generation facility and roll it into the noise model at the time they apply for permission. That's a lot.
For the data center?
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
Yep, so that basically leaves them that flexibility that if they have to separate them because of financing or logistics or anything else, they can, but they can't go start construction until they get our approval for their energy generation facility.
My main concern on that would be is there were separate hearings all the time. So, okay, you're approved for your power plant, but you're not approved for your data center until you do more. And then you'd have either the person promoting the project or the company promoting the project, or the neighbors, whichever the case may be, saying, well, it's a 50-50 deal, and we lost round one, so we better be doubly prepared to attack round two.
Well, they don't necessarily locate in the same place. They may have a power generation facility that's a little further afield. That's quite possible.
So they'd have to have more land acquisition.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions for Natalie? Okay. So I'm going to open the public hearing. I just want to remind folks, we're going to be limiting you to 3 minutes. I need you to stand up at the podium, state your name, where you're from, and then go ahead and say what you'd like to say. Please keep in mind, we're here to discuss the county's ordinances that are presented currently in front of us. Okay, we have nothing to do with the city's extraterritorial. We have no say in any of that. We understand folks may see something that isn't in this ordinance they would like to bring up, which is fine, but please try to keep it to the ordinance and what we have in front of us.
And I'll say too, just one more thing to add. It isn't like you have to cast a vote like it's a voting box. If someone has said what you were going to say, please trust that the commission has heard that comment and maybe just say, I agree with so-and-so, or I think that point is important, and you know, we are listening.
I'm gonna pop up. My name is Mavis Wall, and I do want to say I appreciate the county commissioners being so open to public discussion. And I know you also have a history of doing that, because I worked with Natalie years ago on the zoning when we were on a property, or we have property west of Mandan. And when we were doing the zoning process, we knew that compromises had to be made. And one of the things that we have right now near our property is there's commercial, it's zoned as commercial. But let's say, but where our property is zoned as agriculture. So let's say that a data center comes to us and makes an offer that we can't refuse. So when we first were on that zoning committee, we assumed with our property, which was adjacent to the commercial property, that if we ever sold, it would go to commercial, because the whole goal of the zoning process is to prevent patchwork. You want it to have contiguous zones. But according to what the ordinance says, it says that it can be either agriculture or industrial. So someone could come to us, and we have agriculture, and right across the road is commercial. And if we sold to a data center, we automatically jumped to industrial. So the zoning commission kind of lost control there, because, you know, you say that we can do that. But what I would like to suggest is that if you could add some verbiage that says, if the agriculture is adjacent to property that has already been zoned commercial or residential, that the agriculture property should remain so, either as commercial or residential, whatever is next to it. So that would be my suggestion, because otherwise, you know, just west of Mandan, I could just say, you know, we're selling and have a big old data center there because it's agriculture. Just a suggestion.
Thank you.
My My name is Laura Sagasser. I live in Mandan. I understand that my personal property where it's on the border of that black line that was shown on that map earlier. So the city ordinance is what's going to affect my property personally. However, I know people who live outside of the blue line, and so I just want to speak for those people and anyone else who can't be here today who's going to be affected. So as someone involved in the IT sector for over 15 years, I have seen technology change and advance many times. With the developments in AI over the past few years, we have seen tremendous leaps in the way people are interacting with the world. This technology has a wide number of practical applications that can advance various fields of study and improve the lives of communities. However, the technology is not being advanced and applied responsibly. We see data centers being erected without considering the impacts. It is true that data centers can have a positive impact on the local economy, at least temporarily. But the widespread, long-term impacts are what we need to consider, not short-term profits for the 1%. Noise pollution, water waste, and strain on the power grid are only a few of the concerns we know about. The impact on local ecology has not yet been widely studied, but we know it has a negative impact on wildlife. North Dakota is a farming state, the #1 producer of honey and many crops in America. Many of these things require a healthy local ecology to ensure healthy crops. In addition, the AI bubble is already starting to burst. While there may be valid arguments for building more data centers in North Dakota, the irresponsible construction frenzy taking place in some areas is setting up their communities to fail. Big tech companies will make big promises, cause big destruction, and then expect big subsidies from the populace to support them when they don't churn out the promised profits. While it is a necessity to craft ordinances and important to implement policies that address citizen concerns, the reality is that there are many active lawsuits against data centers for violations. As discussed earlier in this meeting, it can be difficult to enforce ordinances once the data centers are in place, and may fall on the populace to bring legal action. This is unacceptable, so our regulations must be stringent enough to ensure these projects take real responsibility before they can even be considered for construction here.
Laura, I'm going to ask you to stop. Your 3 minutes are up, okay? Thank you. If you're online, please mute your phones or your microphones.
My name is Kimball Banks, and I live just north of Mandan, just north of the extraterritorial boundary, but I'm not here to talk about the Mandan. I've read your ordinance, and I want to commend the commission for developing what I think is a good ordinance, and especially the subcommittee you formed to develop it. And I have 6 specific comments about the ordinance itself. In section D1, project narrative, I think the narrative should include a decommissioning plan. You address reclamation in section R, but I think the developer needs to address how they will comply with that section and include that in the application. For section D6, projected vehicle trip per day, subsection A, the traffic impact study needs to identify peak hours, and that should be posted to the public so the public is informed. Section G, general setback. Setback should be measured as there's a clause in there, I didn't understand it, and it's the end of this sentence. Setback should be measured as the horizontal distance between the vertical edge of any structure, and that sentence ends with "and any object," and it's unclear as to what you're referring to as any object. Section 2, noise impact analysis. I suggest that you require the study be done by an independent third-party consultant with the listed qualifications. The applicant should pay for that study, the cost of doing business.
This conference will now be recorded.
The applicant should consider that the cost of doing business. I mean, they're going to spend billions, and having a noise abatement study is not going to affect the bottom line on that. But the commission needs to approve this consultant. The commission must also approve the study and needs to make the study available to the public, as you see, noise is an issue with these centers. And have you considered requiring a noise abatement plan? I know Natalie talked about
how noise was going to be measured, but there was going to be the measurement during, by going back and looking at all the equipment, as I understand it, then there'll be a study once that the data center is completed. And if those two disagree, how are you going to deal with that? So I suggest a noise abatement plan.
30 seconds.
Section M needs to include a dust abatement plan, especially for dirt roads, and I think Natalie already addressed that. And finally, I would urge you to require a socioeconomic impact analysis using a third-party contractor. The applicant, again, must hire the contractor as a cost of doing business, and you retain the right to approve the contractor. The analysis needs to address impacts to the infrastructure, police, fire, schools, healthcare facilities, housing, traffic, etc., along with income to the county and local business and impacts to taxes and other resources. You will have an influx of transient workers for several years, and they will have an impact on the infrastructure and the local population. That analysis needs to be made public so the citizenry can know what they are to expect. And with that, I thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for this opportunity to comment. My name is Signe Snortland, and I live in Morton County. I commend you for using a subcommittee process to draft this data center ordinance. I offer these comments for your consideration as a former federal environmental specialist and current Morton County resident. While there are many excellent stipulations in this draft ordinance, one essential element is missing. I suggest you require that the applicant fund an environmental and related socioeconomic analyses of the beneficial and adverse effects of building and operating a data center in Morton County. The studies should be conducted by an independent contractor who prepares and distributes a public-level draft document disclosing the results. This review will identify mitigation measures to incorporate into the special use permit. Mercer County's Section D Environmental Review section in their industrial use standards contains very useful language that I recommend be incorporated into Morton County's ordinance, and I've given a copy to Natalie. So looking at the ordinance, page 1 in B, permitted districts, because data centers are AI factories that, quote, generate significant impacts, end quote, as you state in your definition of data centers, this land use should be permitted only in industrial districts. Morton County updated its Morton County 2045 comprehensive plan and adopted it on February 8, 2018. Appendix A contains a map designated future land use areas for industrial, commercial, open space, or agriculture and residential, etc. This comprehensive plan states that, quote, the purpose of future land use element is to direct growth to appropriate locations so as to mitigate potential land use conflicts, end quote. To avoid land use conflicts, I suggest you strike, quote, agricultural end quote, from this section. This would be following President Trump's Executive Order 14318 that directs siting of data centers on brownfield sites as defined in 42 U.S.C. 964, 966, and 9620, or on a Superfund site. Page 1, required demonstration of electrical service and cost responsibilities. Will the data center be required to have electrical service available before they begin operation? Or will they be allowed to operate the data center powered by their temporary diesel generators that emit fumes that are exempt from regulation by EPA and DEQ?
30 seconds.
30 seconds.
Thank you. Thank God I handed in my hard copy. Page 3. I suggest also requiring a quantification of traffic during construction. How many pieces of heavy equipment and workers will be driving past Mandan High School every day for how many years? On page 7, change a data center facility must not to shall not. Page 8, I suggest 24/7 sound monitoring equipment be installed at the expense of the applicant so Morton County can determine when noise standards are violated and take action. Page 11, developer agreement. This appears to be a community benefit agreement. A good example is the one developed by Lancaster, Pennsylvania, which I have given to, and you want me to stop now?
Time is up.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry. Please hold the clapping, guys. Please hold your applause, just to speed up the process as folks are moving up. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Seth Owens. I live in Mandan. I'm going to talk really fast, so hopefully you get all that I need to talk about. I've kind of gone through and talked about some of the things, or noted some of the things that I'd like to see changed. Under F for use standards, where it's F3, talks about the equipment and structures. I'd like to make a note that solar panels, if utilized as a backup form of energy, would be required to be built on the existing structure, or if they're built on the ground, I'd love to see a modification made where native grasses and forbs have to be planted underneath those sites. They can't just be left bare. Under F4, all light emanating from the facility, talking about light pollution, it says that using shielding is using shielding as necessary. I'd like to change that to require shielding. We know that light pollution emanating vertically has a huge effect on migratory birds, which North Dakota is known for. Light tones should be in the 300 Kelvin range or warmer. That will have less of an effect on the environment in the area. And during peak migration periods, which North Dakota sees millions of birds migrate over, especially in the Missouri River corridor, have lights be dimmed, motion activated, or off. We have a note on F6 about may require the applicant to plant a vegetative buffer. I'd like to see that to change to will require a vegetative buffer, and this vegetative buffer be composed of native species. For F7, the applicant shall consult with Morton County SCD on seed mixture for reseeding. I'd like to encourage or make it mandatory that this reseeding effort is composed of native grasses and forbs that are found in Morton County. Under L for the biological resources survey, I'd like to see the estimated sound footprint. We know that slight increases in ambient noise has huge impacts on wildlife, which once again, North Dakota is known for. Using the sound footprint as the service area, and investigate and reference both the threatened and endangered species list and North Dakota Game and Fish's species of greatest conservation need, and weigh the species that occur in that area that are threatened or endangered or on our conservation list for the state with a heavier mind than just an average species that is in healthy condition. Under reclamation, it's been noted, I think qualified professionals should be unattached to state and county levels, and definitely unattached from the data center being put in. This should be an anonymous, almost anonymous third party that has no ties to any potential profit from the area. For basic questions, what environmental mitigation is required for the far-reaching effects that go on beyond that one structure? We have light, noise, other forms of disturbance, and the additional structures and infrastructure that must come up. In short, I'd like to see stricter environmental regulations and investigate the effects that these data centers have on North Dakota's wildlife. We know that noise, light, and infrastructure required for these facilities extend far beyond property lines. Wildlife in the United States belongs to all of us. It belongs to you and you and you, all of you. And these facilities without tight environmental regulation will cause lasting damage to the species and the landscapes that make North Dakota great. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just really have a note. I'm sorry, I'm Boyd Addy. I've been a physician in town here for 49 years now. Anyway, my question has to do with getting what happens to the water that's put back into the river. I don't notice any of our Native American people here who showed up. There you are, thank you. But has anyone thought that the Dakota Access Pipeline problem might occur here too? That this is also a pollution problem, or at least deemed that by some of our Native American people? And if that is the case, I'd rather have the county do that now rather than as the stuff is being built.
Those decisions are made by the North Dakota Department of Environmental Quality. They don't fall at the county level, so they have to file their permits through the North Dakota Department of Environmental Quality. They make those decisions at those levels.
Is that what happened at Dakota Access Pipeline?
Yep.
Okay. Well, thank you then.
Mm-hmm.
I am Sarah Puckle, and I am Mandan resident, but I am right on the edge, Mandan to Morton County, so I would be caught in that gray zone if something was built very close by. I don't have prepared remarks. I'm just kind of flying by the seat of my frayed hair here, but all the people that before me that had those prepared marks with the statements and everything, in the perfect world, there would be no data center. Absolutely not. Do not even discuss this, hands down, no. But it's gonna happen. It happened with the oil, it happened with the windmills, it's gonna come, it's gonna happen. Pay attention to what those people that were before me that had the written remarks, and I would include everything that they have suggested, because if they're gonna come here, the data center needs to be dedicated to the community and needs to be dedicated to bettering everything that is available around them for their 6 employees that they will eventually leave staffed behind. So if you know, as you're discussing this, please do not dismiss anything that anyone has said before me and had in their written remarks. Make it as hard as possible for them to try to build here, because they're still going to come. Our temperatures aren't going to change, and if that's what they're after, they're still going to come. So, thank you.
Hello, my name is Norman Radness. I live on 27th Street, north of the Walmart, there down in Terra Valley. I probably want to bring a voice for just a very tiny segment of interest, but it really does affect a lot of people here. I'm a ham radio operator. You have a ton of electronic equipment up there. Everybody's focused on what you're going to hear, and so let's go up the spectrum a little bit to radio frequencies. Is this going to wipe out? I use equipment to receive signals from all over the world, and there is a lot of competing systems in Mandan already with harmonics and stuff that make the use of those frequencies unusable. Is this going to add a whole spectrum of radio interference for, you know, even cell phone and things like that? So in your studies of audio range, go up the scale a little bit into the radio frequency range. That's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Aldrin Simpran. So I'm here just to give you an idea. I'm an IT professional for 30 years, I guess. So I'm just going to touch about closed loop technology that you put in your draft and give you an idea that there's a ton of technology out there that calls themselves closed loop, but there is some certain closed loop technology that can help with water and also the noise. So closed loop cooling can dramatically reduce noise, but it does not eliminate all noise by default. It depends on which cooling technology you choose and how you design the outdoor heat rejection equipment. So closed loop cooling removes the noisiest equipment, which is the cooling towers, if you have the right equipment for that. But dry coolers and condensers still produce fan noise. If you choose the right system, noise can be reduced to levels that neighbors barely notice, even in residential zones. So just give you an idea, open your eyes, that closed loop is not like one set of technology. And for water, closed loop water-free cooling can work in hot summers, but only certain technologies maintain full water-free operation when ambient temperatures exceeds 95 to 110 degrees Fahrenheit. So the key is whether the system can reject heat to the outside air without needing evaporative cooling. Evaporative cooling is the one that uses water. That's where you have wastewater, basically. So just keep in mind that there is technology out there for closed loop that doesn't really use water. So when you make this draft, maybe add more requirements over that piece, because I believe 90% of the issue with data center is with how you use those servers. So water-free cooling works in hot summer if you use different, like, example is hot liquid cooling with dry coolers, which NVIDIA
30 seconds.
NVIDIA has now developed. But it will cost them a lot for the data center developer to use. So just urge you not to skimp on, maybe they will say it's going to cost us more or what. But I mean, for us, we're the ones going to handle, look at that for a long time.
Thank you. Is there anyone online that would like to speak? Okay.
Hello, my name is Chuck Wetzel. I live up on Old Red Trail, right on top of the whole business where this is going to be. You say you got stacks with noise coming out. Is that going to be level with my yard?
We can't answer that.
Well, the plant, you're building the plant up there, this data plant. If you're going to build the noise, isn't that just going to come right over the top of that?
We
You're
don't
down
have-
in the hole. I know you
That's
ain't.
outside of our, that's outside
I know
of
you
our
ain't.
area.
I'm just,
Yep.
well, you're talking about it.
Yep.
Don't make any sense. I mean, we all live on top of the Old Red Trail, and they want to build us down in the hole. Where's that noise gonna go? It ain't gonna go up that way. And then the roads, well, I hope doesn't happen, but the roads down to Heskett plant, down to the interstate, they just redone those. Are you gonna have them redo that again on their cost? Or are we gonna pay for it? I'm just telling you what's coming if they let it in there. You think I'm stupid, I guess, the way it looks to me. But
No, we're happy to hear
You
it.
guys
We
gotta
just,
wake up.
we don't have a say in that area.
I know you don't.
Yep,
The city does.
yep.
I know that. Don't have to tell me again. But somebody needs to wake up.
Okay.
Think about it. Or I'll tell the city the same thing. I ain't scared of them.
Got to move this down for the short lady here. Lisa Pulkerbeck. I own a property southwest of Mandan where I live and another house in St. Anthony where my son lives. I read through the proposed draft and things today and last night. Question, maybe this is in there, and forgive me if it isn't. If we have a data center, you set out all these rules, they say, yes, we can do this, we're going to do this, we'll abide by all of them, and then lo and behold, life happens, things get expensive, they cut corners, and rules that they have agreed to are not kept up, right? So they've broken ordinance. What is the punishment? Are there fines? Who monitors noise as the time goes by? Who monitors the light? Who says, I mean, is there a commission at the county level? Who watches over them and provides, saying, yes, you're following the rules, or hey, you did not follow this rule and you broke it, so we need a consequence. They're bringing in billion-dollar buildings and machines and all this stuff. And big companies, sometimes they break rules. Humans do. We all lie. We all say we're going to do one thing, and sometimes life doesn't happen that way. So my question is, are there punishments per se? Are they just going to say, hey, we did this, use your fine $1,000, we'll pay it, or sue us? And then who's going to sue them? Does the county have money for that? No. Do the citizens? No. That's my question. If that is in the ordinance, great, and I missed it. If not, and anyone has an answer, that'd be awesome.
I'll let Natalie, I'll let Natalie answer that.
You can go ahead and sit down. I'll just cover it. Okay, so on page 7, on point 17 under use standards, if at any point after operations have commenced, the data center facility falls out of compliance with any of the standards in this section, the special use permit shall be automatically suspended until the facility returns to compliance. So we live in an environment in North Dakota where a zoning violation, so if a data center or any other land use that's been given permission to be, to operate, if they do something that's in violation of what our standards are, it's called a zoning violation. It can be all or part or one thing that they're not doing. And then we go through the channels that we would go through for any zoning violation. And we document, we have to collect evidence. That can be difficult to do. But we collect evidence, and then when we have enough evidence, we turn it over to our state's attorney for prosecution. And in North Dakota, a zoning violation is a petty misdemeanor, punishable by $1,000 or 30 days in jail. So that's the environment that we exist in for zoning violations. That's at the state level. You can go talk to your legislators if you want a different environment. So it's,
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
I'm going to turn it over to.
Yep, thank you.
Hello, I'm Shannon Girding. I'm a lifetime resident of Morton County, and I commend you for being proactive in all of this, and I agree with all of the comments that the other folks have said. I had a speech prepared, but everything pretty much was covered except for one thing that when I was reading through the ordinance, it's section 5320G1. It's regarding the setbacks. And I'm just curious, it's more of a question, I guess. Where did the 3/4 of a mile come where, you'd have to set back the data center from residents or whatever? That's really all I'm curious about. I mean, could we do some kind of a independent acoustic study, some health research, real world data from existing hyperscale facilities, studies of impacts on schools and residential neighbors? I mean, is there evidence out there right now and information out there that we can hone into to see, like, what is a safe distance? Because 3/4 of a mile just doesn't seem to sit right with me. But and does anybody have a comment on that? Sorry, thank you.
So in an ideal world, we would have researchers who have already gone around to all the data centers that exist and take measurements, and we'd have data. I love data. It's just really expensive. Data is super expensive. I mean, if Morton County if we had the funds to say, we're gonna hire researchers to or acoustic engineers, please go around, we're gonna hire you. Please go around the country, please measure how far the noise from these data centers carries. We could do that. We'd have to pay someone to do that. So, I mean, that's how, there isn't a data set that I know that we could go to get truly reliable quantitative data for that. It's all hearsay, it's all news stories, it's all the neighbors said this, you know what I mean? So the 3/4 of a mile was a comfort level from the subcommittee, we discussed it. I would say Williston, when they put or Williams County, when they put their ordinance together, they had a consultant do that. I won't speak to their process, but I do believe the 1 mile that they landed on, they pulled it out of a hat the same way we would pull any number out of a hat. It's not based on quantitative data because that data doesn't exist, to my knowledge. So we're gonna bring it one question at a time.
Bring
it back to the chair.
Yep. If you have questions, please come forward, or any comments that you'd like to make. Yep. Go ahead and line up on the side behind Natalie there, if you have comments that you're going to want to make.
Hi, my name is Charity Schmidt. I'm a Mandan resident. I actually live in South Mandan in Lakewood, so this is pretty far from my house. I don't have any prepared comments, and I don't have any questions, but I do have some things that I think that we need to maybe slow down a little bit here. We keep talking about how we don't have this and we don't have that. There's no data. Why can't we take a little bit of time to put it in? Who is this truly benefiting? Because it seems to me that it's not benefiting us. So is it benefiting you? Because we don't have the information. There's not studies environmentally. This is a conservation state, and yet it doesn't seem like we are conserving anything. We're not conserving water. We're not conserving electricity. We don't seem to care about wildlife anymore. We don't care about farmers. There are cows that are having stillbirth. This is proven all over the country. We're ignoring that. For what? Why are we ignoring this? These people don't seem to be ignoring these things, so it seems like our elected officials may be. I urge you guys to slow down and actually listen to the people who live here. Who is this benefiting? Because it doesn't seem to be the people in this community. Why does this have to be here? Why does it need to be a half a mile from where people live?
Okay, yep, go ahead, that person online, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hello, my name is Matt Foster. I'm a lifelong Mandan resident, and I echo the last speaker. I think we join the list of counties that is growing nationwide and put a pause on this development rather than offer suggestions of studies we can't afford and they won't pay for. We just pause it altogether, say we don't want it here. The room is packed for that reason. That's all I wanted to say.
Yep, go ahead.
My name is Sheila Freilich, and I'm a Mandan resident. I ditto everything that the previous speaker said. Also, that's exactly what I was going to say. There is, you're talking about social media and people complaining on social media about the different things that are happening. Maybe not all of it is true. Maybe some is exaggerated, but some of it is true. And there are centers that have been running that we can get data from. And I guess basically, I think we need to put things on hold as well and look at what other cities, states, counties have done, where their problems are before we jump into this. I think what you guys have done so far has been great, and all of the other speakers that have made suggestions, fantastic, but we need to go further.
One more online. Okay. If that person online would like to speak.
Hi, my name is Barbara Hamill. I am a lifelong resident of Mandan as well. I've moved away a couple times and always come home because I love it here. It's beautiful. I do want to say I appreciate all the work that you guys have put into this. I think you've done a fantastic job of putting together all of the work into the ordinances. But I just think we need to slow down. I've worked in technology all of my life, over 40 years. I know the things it can do. I know the things that it shouldn't do. I don't know that our community needs it. I don't think it has to be that close. I think that we're building an AI data center. If you even look at the AI, ask the AI online. Ask it how close it should be to a community. It will tell you. It really shouldn't be more than 1 to 3 miles. All right? Ask it. It'll tell you. Just pulling from all of the data that it knows online. Okay? That's what it's there for. So I just echo what everybody has said, but I do want to thank you for all that you've presented us. And I just wanted to put my concerns in. I have a few other concerns, but I think those can wait. But that was my my main thing that I just wanted to echo everybody and just say thank you. All right?
Thank you.
Hamatakiapi. Hello, my relatives. Wambli Numpa, Chaze Matawaki. My name is Carol Two Eagles, and I head Indian Made Products Incorporated. We have 3/4 of an acre right on the other side of where that data center is supposed to go. And we have a neighbor 80 or 90 feet from our west line. Where's the 1 mile? Where's the 3/4 mile? Why is the boundary not there? I and various associates have spent the last 8 years striving to put a prairie and pollinator patch on our 3/4 of an acre. And we're having an argument to end all arguments with the people who reseeded last year after the pipeline was replaced. Because they didn't read a tag or couldn't read a tag or didn't even look for a tag, but half of what they put in was lamb's quarters, which is edible, but who needs 750 pounds of lamb's quarters? And motherwort and mugwort, both of which have fine medicinal value. Again, who needs 750 pounds of them? We've got 3/4 of an acre, well, okay, 3/8 of an acre of these 3 plants. Yeah, right. And the other thing is, I'm a pipe keeper. So that makes me a spiritual guide to a huge number of people. And ordinarily, we go out there and we have ceremony. I'd love to know how we're supposed to have ceremony in peace and quiet with a data center 50 feet away. If the heat doesn't fry us, the noise certainly will. Elephants communicate by putting their trunks to the ground and rumbling. And they can hear each other 4 and 5 miles away. This is awfully big elephant. And I think we need to make some very strong studies, get data where it doesn't exist. And I have ample scientific credentials if anybody wants to make use of mine. The only thing I want to see is peace and quiet and more pollinators and, things like that. We have 2 mule deer does right now and 3 fawns.
30 seconds.
A handful of pheasant roosters who live to explode under my knees, which is really bad for me. But we have meadowlarks, we have rusty patch bumblebees, we have endangered species that are not plants, but they're all affected by this. And then, of course, there's another endangered species, us original people. Thank you for hearing me in a good way. Let me talk to you.
Hi. I'm just going to echo a lot of what previous commenters have said. My name is Eden Stramer, and I live in Mandan, and even though I live in Mandan, I still feel like I am very interested on what happens in Morton County. Honestly, I am apprehensive about lifting the moratorium at all. I appreciate that a lot of thought and time and effort has gone into drafting the proposed ordinance, but I don't really see the need for opening our land, community, or resources up to data centers at all. If it is absolutely impossible to continue the moratorium, then I do deeply implore you to listen to the advice and comments of the people, the wonderful people who have spoken before me. We should not be trading our peace and health of our community for the monetary interests of out-of-state or foreign data companies. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Travis Stramer. So I have a question to anyone here who might be knowledgeable. I appreciate the efforts of everyone here too, and I realize you guys probably have a tough job at times. But I'm just curious, does anyone know how this benefits our community financially in any way? Is there a product that's taxable? What actually is the reason? Does anybody actually know? An honest question. Because I don't understand what it produces that's taxable or how it could ever benefit. Why the push? Is it just because the landowner wants to sell the land?
There would be property taxes paid based
Okay.
on the value. So now, the property taxes, you have the assessed value of the property under North Dakota Century Code, cut that in half, you multiply it out by whatever the percentage is. Commercial is usually a 10% property tax. Multiply that out by the mill levy set by whatever jurisdiction, county, city, etc. And that's generally a larger volume of property tax compared to smaller, less valuable property. That's all I can tell you.
Okay, anybody else know of any tangible value that it brings? I guess I'd like to say, like, from a regulatory perspective, although, I don't work directly in it, I have seen plenty of it, and a lot of these corporations, they're kind of like if you got a refrigerator in Texas and you move it and you find a bunch of cockroaches. They don't just stay there so you can, like, pin them down. Any type of regulatory framework that's developed, they're going to try to find a way around it. And if there's no enforcement to actually hold them accountable at the end of the day, and as we said, a misdemeanor, and we have a state's attorney referral who wouldn't comment. So what actually do we have in the end, except it's a real question. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I have some older figures on property tax.
Yep.
Some of this is 4 years old, and the legislature can change rules at any time. But the last time I checked, the Mandan Refinery pays Morton County $2.7 million in property tax every year. The old Heskett Power Plant powerhouse that is now demolished, but they still have natural gas turbines in that area. Back when it was the powerhouse paid $353,000. The total wind turbines in Morton County, and we've added more, total wind turbines 4 years ago was $2.1 million. The DAPL pipeline to Morton County is $1 million. All other pipelines that cross Morton County was $900,000. And then a lot of this is also being generated by what's occurring in Oliver County and Mercer County. 4 years ago, the coal conversion tax to Oliver County was $153,000. Coal severance was $340,000. Minkota property tax was $19,000. BNI property tax was $70,000. Oliver Wind, which is a NextEra project, was $176,000. Oliver 3, which is another NextEra project, was $10,000. Minnesota Power Generation Tax Wind to Oliver County was $1.2 million. Then the Oliver County auditor gave me their transmission tax. Elite Energy pays $14,000, Basin Electric $22,000, Great River Energy $5,000, Minkota Power $17,000, More Grand Sioux $3,729, Oliver Wind $800, Rough Rider Elected $3,700, and Square Butte $1,200. Total electronic transmission tax $67,800. I could not get anything from Mercer County when I did these studies. But what these generate in property tax is going to be dependent on what the state legislature does. Then if the state legislature passes a property tax exemption from them, that is up to the state legislature. That is not county jurisdiction. But as of now, they would be paying county property tax, but it all depends on the size of the facility. How much land are they on? There's a lot of things that go into it that we don't have at this point. But if it's about intensive industrial use, you're not going to get more intensive industrial use than the Mandan refinery, and that's 2.7 million. If the Mandan refinery closes because there's a change in federal leadership, and let's say they want to use the Clean Waters Act of the United States and get rid of the Mandan refinery on the banks of the Missouri River, let's just say it happens. That's 2.7 million that is now the county is going to have to try to figure out how to reimburse.
Thank you. I will make a second call for the public hearing.
My name is Robert Muth. I live up in Mandan, kind of on the border that a lot of these other people have mentioned. Don't really have very well prepared notes, so forgive me if some of this was covered in the notes that I haven't had a chance to review since I found out about this morning. And I'll never support the data centers being here. I fully support and echo the previous concerns. We know data centers use massive amounts of energy, requiring power lines to transfer that energy, particularly those facilities that are not side by side. So if we have a data center in one location and a power production facility in another, we're going to need power lines between them. I haven't seen anything so far in this meeting indicating that, and I'd like to see restrictions placed on those needed facilities so that we do not have our North Dakota farms being cut in half by power lines. And some of these in southern states have already removed people via eminent domain, which is also something I would like to see stopped. We don't need this for our state. Thank you.
My name is Jennifer Flores. I live in Mandan. But as we've all seen, just with, all the wildfire smoke we've had so far and in previous summers, what happens even nearby us affects us even here in the city. So I'm so glad to see everybody here and caring about what's going to happen in our state and in our county. I had two little things. That's just when I heard Natalie presenting this two separate times, once when talking about noise and once with the electrical grid, say that except unless it was in an emergency. And who decides when it's an emergency? Is that the data center that says, no, this is an emergency, so we're gonna never mind these things? So I'd like to see better language around when they're allowed to violate these noise ordinances, although it shouldn't go at all, but thank you.
Hi, my name is Jacob Magnus. I'm a resident of Mandan, kind of on that border, like a number of other people. Andy, you had referenced the plant up north in Mandan. They also employ a ton of employees. They have a ton of employees and they're good paying jobs versus this 6 employees. I've worked extensively in Williston near their data center there. And when I am there, I see a security vehicle and sometimes a van, for a cleaner. And that's the extent of it. So I honestly would like to see just extremely stringent policy on allowing any kind of data center build out, because North Dakota survived for a long time without even gas and oil. We survived. And it has given us our state a bankroll And a lot of it good, some of it bad. But I think this data center craze is going to go away if we give it 3-4 years. So if we make it stringent enough policies that we don't have it here, 3-4 years down the road, new technology will come along where these data centers that are gigantic facilities, they won't be that anymore. Whether it's, power plants, we have them build power plants when they can actually make small nuclear power plants in China right now. I mean, I know the nuclear is kind of a scary topic for a lot of people, but I mean, they're tiny little facilities and they don't burn through water. They don't do all these other things like a lot of the generation facilities that we build now are. So I think putting just a general hold on it through aggressive policy would be a great step forward. And when this whole thing blows over, then we can always scale back. You can always scale back because somebody else wants to build something that does have benefit that may be 8 stories high.
30 seconds.
So I do appreciate you guys all letting us speak. It's been,
So just to address some of the strict policy, some of the complete moratoriums, when you have those in place, they can be fought in court. These companies have deeper pockets than the county. So to completely eliminate them, to completely say, no, you can't, no different than when you go to build a fence and your neighbor says, no, you can't. If you have the ability, you get to build your fence. Keep that in mind when it comes to these policies. We have to make them fair. We have to try to make them as uniform and no different than if it was you that they came to purchase the land. It's your land, I want it, you're going to do what you can to have it. That person selling the land has that same right, and we have to make it so that they can do that, but still not affect folks' livelihood and day-to-day. So that is the difficulty of sitting up here. We do completely understand your concerns, but we can't completely regulate them out. Can you come up to the mic so the people online can hear?
If we do fight a little bit, even just that little bit, they may decide to go somewhere else.
Yep.
Hi, my name is Kayla Rafferty. I have been a community member in Mandan for a very long time. I now live in Bismarck and am equally worried about the location around Buckstock Junction. My mom's home is still very much affected by the area. I would also like to just repeat everything that everybody else has said, but I would also like to bring up one concern of mine. Most people in this room in America know and remember who Erin Brockovich was. Erin Brockovich has started an entire website, a campaign, an entire foundation over these data centers. And if we know anything about Erin Brockovich, she was at one point, a young, concerned member of her community that went up against big money, big pharmaceutical companies. And at the same time, how is this not the same thing with it being big tech, big corporation, all of that? So my thing that I think is so important to lay out is that if this woman cared that much when she was in all of her prime to fight as much as she would and did, and then made a multi-million blockbuster movie that came out of her activism and care for her community, why is she at 66 years old at the age of retirement starting up the second largest movement of her entire life? And by the way, the first time she was right. I think it's really important that maybe going off of what the gentleman previous to me said, maybe we don't rush this. maybe we find out that these things are of massive concern through environmental studies and a bunch of things that she was trying to say, hey, these people are getting paid to make this not a huge concern here. Why is it that she thinks that that's happening again and on a much larger scale? So with her activism, I think all of us should take a note from Erin Brockovich, which is why we're all here. But I do not think we should be quiet, because at the end of the day, she won and became an American household name. I do not think that this is impossible, and I do think it's up to us, our community, and again, our elected officials. So with that, thank you so much for allowing me to speak. Thank you. Also, her website is public and everyone should follow it. Sorry.
Hi, my name is Dawn Shepard. I live in rural New Salem. In the special use permit general provisions and approval criteria, it does require that anything that is given a special use permit has to specifically make sure that it ensures that no adverse effects on the health and safety of the residents in the neighborhood are affected. And I think that this current ordinance has great layout for most of the noise that comes from the data centers. There are overlapping noises, there is the vibration, there is the ambient levels and infrasound, and then there is the tonal noise. And the three first ones were all covered in the ordinance, and as we talked before, tonal noise is not covered in there at this time, and it really must be for this ordinance to be complete. Tonal noise is the worst one. Tonal noise is the one where counties, communities, cities, and data centers are being sued all over the country right now. And it is because that is the noise that never stops. It's 24/7. It's repetitive. It's steady. It does not necessarily measure in the decibel readings. So sometimes they give a penalty of 5, 6, 10, or 15 decibels if they're going to include, if they're not going to include the tonal noise, because it's such a low hum that the broadband testing will not pick it up. They have to use a narrowband analysis to pick it up. And the dangers of tonal noise, because it is going nonstop 24/7, it gives people, they get no sleep, they have headaches, they have dizziness, seizures, inability to focus, especially children in school settings. They can't concentrate. It really affects the cortisol levels in people, which affects their immune systems and other health problems. It is hardest on children, the elderly, sick people, livestock. It affects heart issues, circulatory, nausea, it creates nausea. And if this leaves the property, it will actually be trespassing into our homes because it can pass through concrete walls. So I would ask that something be added into the ordinance that would stipulate that a data center is not allowed to produce tonal noise that will carry beyond the property, the border of the property where the data center has been permitted. And being out of compliance with that would result in an automatic suspension until they return to compliance. This is something that needs to be mitigated before the permit is issued, before construction begins, and it can be done. There are a lot of model programs, computer programs that Europe is using for this purpose, and they can be done in Morton County too, and I would request that this commission add this into the ordinance. Thank you.
Hi, I'm going to jump in here really quickly. I understand the studies and all that stuff. There's a whole lot of unknowns.
Can you state your name and where you're from?
My name is David. I'm from here. I know that the studies are inconclusive or unreliable, and it's hard to rely on that kind of data. So it's just speculation on that. But a question: who holds the power company accountable for their rates?
The Public Service Commission.
Public Service Commission. Okay. Is there anything in this at the county level so far that no?
We're not allowed to regulate power rates or any of that. That's all regulated at the state level.
So ultimately, there's nothing that safeguards that for the community.
No.
Is there any way to put something like that on the books, or no? That's two
That's
completely
all handled
separate
at
things?
state legislature level.
Okay. Well, it's a weird little loophole, I suppose. I don't know. Yeah, it's a wildlife preserve kind of state. I think you guys all understand that. I really appreciate your effort and energy with this. I can see on your faces that it's not something that you're taking lightly. So appreciate that. Yeah, just be mindful. Be mindful of what you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you.
I guess I just have one more comment. As far as the regulatory, is there a way that we can, a lot of these companies, $10,000 a day fine is actually the cost of doing business. And they will just calculate that into their costs. And so, we're looking at basically nothing to hold them accountable. Would there be a possibility of establishing a bonding to where they put up the money up front, and a lot of it, in order to basically be held, and if they violate the standards that are set forth, they will be fined automatically out of that bonding? Something to that effect, because what we're seeing here is that we have no way, as a matter of fact, the people here have no way to communicate with each other except for meetings like this, and I'm very thankful that you are offering this. It's more than our federal representatives will do. They won't even let you be bound in a trunk and gagged at a meeting. I mean, you can't get a question. If you throw them a softball question, try to think of something nice that they'd actually listen to. You're still not getting in.
So
my question,
to answer that question,
yep,
those are handled at state century code and legislative.
Yeah.
We have a legislative session coming. Start discussing that with your state representatives and letting them know your concerns. That's where that has to be addressed, because at the county level, we can't set those.
So with the cockroach analogy, it seems like they're coming to the city because the county set forth a moratorium. And it's like it gives multiple players the ability to say, that's not my responsibility. That's this person's responsibility. And for us, we don't have that cohesive organization like, you guys are the people with the power. You can sign the non-disclosure agreements behind closed doors. Hopefully nobody is. We can only come to the meetings. Probably shouldn't do this, but if anyone wants to talk to me, my phone number is 220-0001. I mean, what recourse do we have? We can't contact our representatives. They are literally out to lunch. As far as federal, I can't get a hold of them.
The state is who you to handle zoning
would be the state legislature.
State legislators. Yep.
Our representative, which may be a little better than federal, sure. But I would just encourage that we have some ability to enforce the law, because what if they don't listen?
Yeah, and that's time.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Sheila again here. That bonding idea, I think, is a great idea. I just wanted to throw out two questions here. One is regarding all the taxes that you read off, Mr. Zachmeyer. Do those taxes, are they enough? Let's say the data center pays $5 million a year. Is that enough to pay for any damages and or reclamation in the end when they leave in 3, 4, 5 years? You don't have to answer that now. One other question is, actually true, and I apologize, I didn't get time to fully research it, but I've heard from a couple different sources that the company that has the offer on that land is, I think it's Sagebrush, and that company is a company that goes out to buy land for data centers. The company is in process of being sold to a company from Israel. Do we have any rules, or can we put rules in place that out of USA countries cannot own land data center here. Just a thought. Maybe something can be done that way.
I just had one quick question. I'm Seth Owens again. At the meeting last week, one of the things that was noted was that if local ordinances were held to be too strict, the state ordinance could take over and then local ordinance doesn't have any play anymore. So if we make things too strict, and state decides to do something different, honestly, what's the point of everything we're doing? Is there something that can be done from, as community members here, to kind of rally something to change that state ordinance rule? Or how would we go about doing something like that to make sure that all the effort and concerns that we have here aren't just steamrolled because they just decide that, no, you're too strict and we want something different?
I'll let Natalie answer that.
How do I say this? So, I would imagine most of you are very aware the legislature convened AI and data center subcommittee of the legislature. They met on July 15th. And, it could just be gathering information in advance of the legislative session, because I would imagine without a doubt, there's going to be something, multiple bills, or at least one bill that comes up related to data centers and so forth. And I guess what I would say is if, from federal level governance rolling out to state level, if the legislature wants to accomplish something, they'll find a way to do it. We could very well be putting standards together that then become completely invalid after next legislative session. And I'll give you an example. So somebody brought up transmission lines. At this moment, it's been this way for many years. The Public Service Commission is the entity that permits energy transmission facilities, among other things. And in our state century code, we could have a local process to evaluate transmission lines, but the PSC can completely disregard those findings. If the local county says, we don't think this is the right spot for a transmission facility, the PSC can say, okay, well, thank you for your comments, but we're going to allow it anyway. And it could very much become the same thing with data centers. There was a bill last session talking about the PSC or data centers being required to get a certificate of site compatibility from the PSC. That turned into a legislative study about data centers. I would imagine that whatever rolls out from that interim legislative management study will probably turn into some kind of legislation in the next session. I don't know what that will turn into, but these are questions that the legislature is asking, and anything and everything can happen. I'm not going to speculate what will happen, but the state legislature trumps. Our ability to zone is granted by the state. Our ability to zone is also, granted from the federal government to states, to us. So, if your legislators decide something at a higher level of government, then that's what happens.
So what's the process we need to take to keep Morton County lands in Morton County hands?
So, again, as the chairman had said, your state representatives, that's the conversation that's going to need to happen. And also, I said it at a previous meeting, if you want to be able to levy daily fines for things, cities have that power. They do that. Counties really don't in our context. So, if you want to lobby your legislators to try and make that happen, that would, again, be the venue for that kind of conversation.
Then why are we here?
Hi, excuse me, I'm Mavis Wall. I just wanted to say that this commission has been amazing, the way you have been advising this group of people who are very concerned citizens. It just came out that a purchase agreement has been signed between developers and 3 Morton County landowners to property within the limits of Mandan. The agreement grants Sagebrush Infrastructure Partners the exclusive rights to purchase the properties for 1 year with the options to extend the terms for this data center that we're talking about, and an agreement has just been signed. And our question to you is, what do we do now? I mean, Mandan, the city commission doesn't have an ordinance, and the agreement has been signed to build the infrastructure, so what happens next to us? I mean, we thought we had a voice here and something would manage it, but as of today, right now, so what do we do? Tell us, we don't know. What do we do?
Go ahead.
Obviously, you're hearing this, we're hearing this. We can't control anything that, okay, I have to back up because I'm a city commissioner. This board cannot control what the city is going to do. So I don't believe that just because a purchase has been made of land, that there's going to be any process of developing that without them implementing an ordinance and a policy. So it's not like just because I bought this land, I can go to the building permit and turn it in and build this data center. They have to follow the rules and the regulations, which, my understanding, haven't been set yet. So that doesn't mean that anything is happening at this point, other than maybe a change of ownership in the land. You need to show up and talk to your city people, your city planning and zoning committees, and ask them these questions. We cannot answer these questions tonight.
And I know that, we know that, but the reason I ask you is because you're obviously as concerned as we are. I mean, you have built a trust with us tonight because you're being straightforward, you're showing good faith and trying to manage it. We know that, we can see that in you. So tell us, like, how can we slow it down so that it's like we have some control, or not some control, but we can manage what happens in our neighborhoods and to us?
I feel like the Planning and Zoning Committee for the city is hearing your words, because that's why they pulled that off of their meeting agenda. They're hearing what people are saying and they want to make modifications. I don't know if there's a way to permanently stop this from happening, but yes, we can make it, following our rules and make it more difficult, sure. And they are hearing you, so you need to continue to do that, but we have to do it in the appropriate manner. We have to go to the right people. And tonight, I apologize, but tonight is not the night where we can talk about what's happening in the city. That is going to be for that June 24th meeting, or August 24th meeting with the city.
So we're we're starting to have a lot of people come back to the mic, and that's great. We appreciate the questions. We know things and questions come up. But if you're coming up a second time or a third time, we are going to limit you to 30 seconds to ask your question, and then allow us to answer, and then move on to other people who may want to speak, okay?
Thank you.
So, yep.
Okay, Carol to Eagle again. I'd just like to make 4 points. The legislature has passed at least one law prohibiting certain kinds of land purchases by foreign countries. So that's something we can work with. I have lobbied on grassroots people's concerns every year, in a session and interim, since 1997. So if you need some help, find me. The best defense is a good offense. And there's the story of everybody, somebody, and nobody. Everybody thought somebody would do something, nobody did. Well, that's us. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I just wanted to state that I did go to the Capitol meeting with the legislators a couple weeks ago. What they, at the moment, are proposing to be working on is more rules and regulations, like how is AI going to be used in schools? How will it be used on a state level, in the medical fields, that type of stuff, not the concerns that we've had here today. We do need to find we start with our city, county, we do need to find those people, our state legislators and talk to them, get a group formed, let's go talk to them and see if we can get somebody to back a bill with all of these concerns that we've stated tonight. And if we can't find anyone to back a bill, we might be up a creek, but hopefully somebody will step up for us.
That's time. Thank you.
That's all I needed to say.
For the record, my name is Steve Tomac. I live south of St. Anthony. And I just want to assure all of you, I'm not for this or against this. This is a difficult issue. This is an issue we all struggle with. I was at the post office today and I mailed a letter. And she asked me if I wanted tracking. And I thought, who keeps track of all that data? We can track every single letter, every single package. Where does that all go? Where is that stored? How many of you today talked about social media? Where is that stored? And so I'm not opposed to this. I don't know what the future is going to bring. I'm not IT friendly. I think we struggle in Morton County here as how do we approach this? We've seen mistakes other communities have made. We don't want to make the same mistakes. I hope we've learned by them. I was happy to be part of a subcommittee that helped develop just a small portion of this. And I just wanted to stand up and assure you that in my opinion, this is a good proposal. It may not be perfect as we continue to learn how to handle this, but it's a good starting point. It's a good document. And I want to encourage the Planning and Zoning Commission to go ahead and adopt it and pass it on to the County Commission. This is not perfect, but we have to realize we're in a whole different world. And as we move forward with this, we need to do something. We really do. This is a good starting point, and I'd encourage the Commission to go ahead and pass it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Holly Birch, and I served with Steve on the subcommittee working on this product that you're looking at. And I thought I would just come up and clarify one thing because there has been a number of questions on tonal noise. And we do have the ability to read it with the DBZ readings at the property line of the data center. However, beyond that, I looked. I could not find anything about this with any OSHA regulations, NIOSH regulations, or MSHA regulations. This is new studies, what we're seeing. What I read was a new medical study that was published less than 15 months ago out of Europe that provided some concerns. We are not going to be able to push a noise ordinance of anything like that against the feds. We have no teeth. However, our ability to read it at least gives us a starting point for those who are concerned about that. I did a fair amount of research on this, as did Natalie. Outside of that, there has been a lot of work that has gone into this. Natalie and Jackie, Steve, Mario is on the subcommittee as well, and there's been a great deal of thought. So please read it. If you've got thoughts, great, but I don't know if we're going to get a whole lot better than this. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to say that tonal noise was used by the military for a long time as a form of torture. So I guess if people that have done 8-hour studies in the workplace in OSHA are concerned, and you having employees of places like this with loud noises and tonal noises, they have them wear PPE equipment. What about the residents that are living next door to it that have no PPE and shouldn't have to wear that when it's around them 24/7. This noise, excuse me, this noise is nonstop. It never ceases. It drives you crazy. Would you want to live next to that? Ask yourself that when you're writing this ordinance.
Time.
You don't want to listen to it 24/7, neither does anybody else.
Good evening, planning and zoning members. My name is Cheryl Freilich. I am a resident of Mandan and a citizen of Morton County, lifetime. I've worked in the energy industry for 24 years, and I've attended, this is probably now the third or maybe even fourth meeting that we've been discussing this ordinance. As you know, the subcommittee was developed. They've done a fabulous job. I've sat through Oliver County Commission meetings, Mercer County Commission meetings, last week at the AI Data Center, today at Energy Development. I'm learning a lot. So I would just ask that, and I really appreciate the responses and the communication from citizens. What I see differently here is that people are making suggestions. They're coming prepared. They've read through the ordinance, and they have suggestions for us to take into account or to set aside if they're not factual or appropriate. There's so many things I'd like to say, but I'll just leave everybody with this thought. Part of my energy career has been the last 9 years working for B&I Coal. And I just ask that everybody keep an open mind and recognize that planning and zoning is trying to do their best to balance what's safe and important for the community, as well as what's right for industry and what allows us to have industry. In the late 60s and early 70s, there was a lot of controversy about coal mines and power plants. And so I just ask everybody to learn, listen, give your feedback, and understand that when you give feedback, it can't always be accepted or incorporated. But where would Underwood, Washburn, Center, Hazen, and Beulah, where would they be today if it weren't for the coal plants and the coal mines? Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Third and final call for the public hearing. Any others online? Any others in the room? I will close the public hearing. As we had stated earlier, we will not be voting on this, whether to accept and send to the county commission this month. We will be bringing it back and hearing it again next month. All right, with that.
Mr. Chairman, quick comment.
Yes.
Since we have the state's attorney in the room yet, the county cannot do a moratorium into perpetuity. It would never withstand a court challenge. I was at a meeting with the Commissioner Goering, and he pointed out that the Industrial Commission on different projects will listen to a county commission if they approve or deny a project, but he did also point out that there is no obligation that the Public Service Commission or the Industrial Commission is obligated to follow the county rules or the county's findings. They're going to look at it and make sure that the decision-making was reasonable. And the same thing would happen. It's very clear in state law. Anybody that's aggrieved on a decision of the county commission regarding planning and zoning can challenge in district court, which would require the state's attorney to defend. If a company doesn't like our moratorium and feels it's arbitrary and not based on good science or based on good reasoning, they're going to challenge. State's attorney is going to have to defend it. And Mr. Copy, please stand up and say anything if I say anything wrong.
I agree with you, Commissioner Zachmeyer.
It is, if you don't have a good, decent rules in place to try to protect the citizenry, but still are required to keep that window of opportunity open, that is required, and it's also required by North Dakota Supreme Court decision, and that was a decision on feedlots. Ramsey County at one point put in such strict restrictions on animal feedlots because of the rising waters at Devil's Lake. So you have a water issue. It went to the Supreme Court, North Dakota Supreme Court, and it was overturned, that the restrictions were too strict, to the point they basically regulated large-scale feedlots right out of existence. To do the same thing here, if it becomes too strict that we are regulating them out of existence, the chances of that surviving a court challenge or surviving any type of state scrutiny is minimal to none. We will probably lose. So the other thing you can't do is kill projects by death by meeting. The meetings have to be reasonable. Are you doing fulfilling open records? Are you fulfilling public comment? Are you fulfilling everything? And then the rules that you have, are they fair and equitable? But to say, well, let's have another public hearing, let's do another one, let's do another one, let's do another one, pretty soon you're 10 meetings down the road and you're killing a project by meeting. That's not gonna survive either. Sooner or later, a decision's gotta be made. And right now, we have to put this decision off because there was a mistake, some type of problem in how this was published. So we're required to come back to another public hearing on this topic probably a month from now. But at a certain point, this board is required to make a finding and send to the county commission, either yes or no. But if this board would say, nope, we don't like this ordinance, the county commission is just gonna instruct this board to redraw. Go back to the drawing board, do it again. And if they do approve this, then it goes to the county commission for final approval, one way or the other. But this board is not gonna be given the power to just forward this to the county commission without a recommendation. Because the county commission's gonna send it back. This board is required to make a recommendation by the county commission, one way or the other, and hopefully the next meeting we can get that part of it settled.
Chair L, Commissioners, if I may make a comment. You know, as we work to hash out the details of the ordinance, you know, Commissioner Zachmeyer is 100% right. We have to have something in place. We can't have a moratorium go on, you know, for as long as we would want it to go on. We had questions raised, well, if the state's going to do X, Y, and Z, what is the point of us doing this? The bonus of a local government, a county seat, whatever the case may be, in having legislation or having an ordinance put together, is that there could be a possibility that those ordinances that are put into place could be reviewed by the state legislative committee, may have ideas drawn from it, and they could go forward and say, you know, Morton County has, it's not perfect, but there are a lot of great elements into this ordinance. Let's use it. Let's use maybe what Williston is doing, or, you know, other jurisdictions that have ordinances in place to see what's working and what's not working. There may be ideas in what we end up passing, because we have to have something that could go on to spark, you know, a brain cell at the state level when producing something. I guess that's the nicest way I can put it. So we can go back and forth to say, why are we going through this exercise? We have it in place regardless of what the state does. If the state comes in and the legislature wants to have, you know, an example piece of ordinance to look at, of what are the county level, city level, you know, governmental entities looking at when they're examining these projects, and they have something in front of them to say, Morton County is doing X, Y, and Z. The people of the county have X, Y, and Z concerns. Let's bring that forward, you know, as the state committee convenes. So keep that in the back of your mind. That is the great part of the United States. When we look at federal legislation, we have states from coast to coast that we can look at different example pieces of law what works, what doesn't work. It's part of how we legislate nationally. It also works at the state level. So there is value to having an ordinance put forward, and we're going to work to refine it and make it as good as we can, but it'll never be perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, there was a movement last legislative session for the state to put some data center AI legislation in place to be made by the state. There was a groundswell movement that they did not want to do it. They wanted to leave it within the county to make their own rules. I don't know, we're working as hard as we can here to get that done. I don't know if we want the state to do our rules. I don't know if you do out there, because most of the time it's better locally led. And so that's one thing that we want to make sure that we have our ordinance in place, and if state decides to do something else, I guess we'll have to work with it. But I guess I think it's important that we do that on a local level, better than letting the state decide what we want it done.
Mr. Chairman, one other quick thing. There was questions about who's going to enforce, especially the health safety part of it. Certain things with the water and things, there's state regulations and the such. The noise, this is one thing that did come up, I believe Mr. Blake talked about it, but it doesn't just affect us, it is where are these things? There's Oliver County, Mercer County, possible one here. The only thing that can be universal between all those counties would be West Plains Health. And it's budget season coming up. Every county in West Plains Health has to be there. This is something that we probably should be addressing during their budget hearing. Is there going to be a certain amount of training that West Plains Health needs to do? Because we're going to have somewhat of an enforcement arm somewhere that can show up and take some of the decibel readings. Because I'm not aware of the county having any major decibel reading things other than what the sheriff's deputies have in the back of their patrol cars, which isn't going to pick up tonal noise. And there's only so much then even the sheriff's department can do. We're going to have to start visiting with the other counties in West Plains Health about, is this something that enforcement on some of these things needs to be pushed to them? And then how much would it cost for training?
Is there a date for that meeting?
For West Plains?
Yeah.
They're just when they're next on the county commission for presenting their budget.
For like the health budget, yeah.
Yes.
Is that public?
Yes.
And is there a date for that?
Not that I'm aware of, because they have to get a hold of the auditor, and the auditor has to put it on the agenda.
Okay.
But that would be where we're going to have to discuss
Is
is,
it in 2026 still?
yes.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chairman, I guess, given all the discussion tonight, if there are aspects of this that this board wants to see refined further, I need that direction. I guess one point I would bring up, we had the discussion before about reclamation bonds, and a comment was brought to my attention in, I think, the last 24 hours, that it may not even be possible for a data center to get a reclamation bond for the building. And so I think Commissioner Zachmeyer brought up the point, which is completely true, that if you have elements in here that make it literally impossible for an applicant to attain, so everything that's in here, it can be strict, but it has to be attainable for the applicant, or they have, as Commissioner Zachmeyer said, full grounds to sue over it and win, and then be allowed to do, what they want, or for us to have to revise it. So I guess that would be the point that I would make, is that probably should get changed. We have reclamation standards for below ground tanks, appurtenances. I think that is all fine and can be left in. Some of you may remember we did have this discussion it might have been in March or April, and we were struggling with whether to make that a bonding requirement or not. And I think I mean, I'm gonna look into it a little more, but I think if that is impossible, then that's gonna have to get taken out. And maybe convert to a repurposing agreement or plan or something, as opposed to requiring a bond for demolition of the building.
One of the comments I heard tonight was a decommission plan.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it's an extremely stringent decommission plan to
Mhm.
what are you going to do, what's going to be left, what are we going to be left with as the county and the taxpayers to
Right.
contend with. Again, we're not looking at the one that's going to be north of Mandan, possibly that could be repurposed. If someone wants to build one of these in the middle of Morton County by New Salem, what do you do with a building of that size that can't be supported by any current infrastructure? What do we do with it and not become a tax burden or an eyesore? So I think if we were able to have some sort of decommission plan.
Mr. Chairman, in listening to the Oliver County Commission, and they mentioned bonding, and they said the company can't get.
Right, they just can't even, no one,
No.
I mean, because if you look at it, it's like, okay, what kind of premiums are you paying? And who's even gonna insure, I mean, a bond is a form of insurance, essentially. It's like 50-50 chance.
Right.
Are you gonna default or are you not? And it's like, you can't even, nobody's gonna even offer you those premiums, I guess, if you really think about it. So if, right, if that's impossible to get, then that can't be in here, so.
Mr. Chair, and Natalie, we talked about the cold loop system, and I liked that gentleman's comment about different types of cold loop systems
Mhm.
have less
Yeah, to look
noise.
into-
I would like to see us look into some other options for that.
Detail, yeah.
And more information on that,
Yeah.
please.
Yep, for sure. That was in my notes. I think, yeah, there were a couple, I guess I'll list the ones, the end any object, that was brought up a number of times in comments, so I'm gonna fix that. We'll clarify what does that mean, end any object. I think any object really just means any object that we regulate, but we can fix that language and make that plain, more clear.
Chair L, Natalie, I would be open to exploring that light shielding.
Yes.
Being a little bit more of a requirement than as necessary. The other things in terms of clarity, and you and I had talked about this when we spoke outside of our meeting here, about cleaning up a little bit of the construction phase, operation phase, just to make that a little clearer from the beginning. It becomes clearer as you work your way about halfway through the ordinance, but I think having that up front a little bit more. The other point I didn't ask about when we had our questions was during the construction phase, there's provision in here about topsoil and the reclamation process. I would also think we should probably look at the construction phase as well. Having loose topsoil, blowing winds, that is an excessive problem for many development sites. So to have something that is looking at that development phase, construction phase, to control some of that blowing dust, whether it's watering requirements of the dirt or something to that effect, that the building official would require that to be done.
Sorry, really quickly, with the closed loop cooling systems and all that, can you also please look into the difference that makes in energy usage and how much that would financially impact things for everybody?
I don't know that we
I
have.
don't know that that's information we can even.
I don't think we get
obtain.
energy information.
Yeah, I mean, I mean.
Can ask, but I don't.
Yeah, I mean, and also, you can do that research, I mean, if you can find it.
Sure, yeah, but I'm just the guy on the phone, you know, but I'm just saying.
And my research is the same, I just go start looking, so just so you know. I wanted to point out too, the lights, for whoever made that comment, our intention in how that is worded, and that wording was borrowed from other parts of the ordinance. It is supposed to be shielded towards the ground. It is not supposed to be able to go vertical, but if that wasn't clear in the wording, I'll go back and look at that and just make sure it's worded correctly. It says it needs to be directed within the site boundary and not outside of it. And also, I mean, if there was some glitch in how that was written and somehow it can go up, we'll fix it, but the intent is for it to always be shielded down. Timing of lights, I guess, sometimes people need security lights and those need to be on all the time when it's dark, but again. Well, and I think most industrial facilities that come online now, it's pretty standard for them to have shielded light. You know, whenever we've had applications come through, nobody bats an eye about shielded lighting. I mean, it's a waste of energy, it's a waste of everything to just have it out, you know, emanating everywhere. I don't think that's already in there, that it needs to be directed towards the ground and contained within the site that's been permitted, so it's not emanating off the project site. That's already in there. So, and then whoever had mentioned, how do we define emergency operations? That was a really good point. I don't know if they're still here, but yeah. I will work on that. Thank you. I think those were my main ones. Did anybody else have anything? Well, this is the
public comment. Yeah, the public
is,
comment period is closed.
Yep.
Any other concerns, questions from the commission?
Are you gonna, mic is up. The gentleman that talked about the radio interference, I don't know anything about ham radios.
Yeah, and I mean, that would be over and above. We would be treating data centers a lot differently than other uses.
Okay.
You know, I mean, I think maybe for that individual, look into data center. I mean, again, I have no more information than anybody else.
Yeah.
You know, from what I have heard from the acoustical engineer who has worked with a lot of data centers, he was saying there's really not that much that's emanating noise-wise from data centers at this point in terms of, I don't know, like electromagnetic stuff. I mean, I don't know. I guess I think I can understand the concern, but I think it might be just, I'm concerned because we don't know. I don't think that's probably a likely effect.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Natalie.
Yep. Any other comments from the board? Okay. We'll open the public comment period pursuant to North Dakota Century Code 44.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, one more.
Yes.
One more item. I just need a review and thumbs up on my department budget, which is in the back of your packet.
Mr. Chairman, since we can't take votes on anything today, let's push that to the next meeting too.
Okay.
But the budget needs to be reviewed, and this board then makes a recommendation to the county commission on the planning and zoning budget.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it for me then.
Okay. Yeah, public comment period pursuant to North Dakota Century Code 440420. Members of the public wishing to provide comment are asked to provide their full name, address, and agenda topic in writing prior to the meeting about previous meetings. I did not receive anything prior, so with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Move and motion and a second. Although.
What's Commissioner Brown?
Yep. All right, meeting adjourned.